Mary lived in a small house. Her dog Max lived with her. Max was very old. His fur was grey, his legs were weak, but his eyes were still warm. Every morning Mary held his leash. She said, "Come, Max, let us walk." Max walked slow. Mary walked slow too. People in the street smiled at them. One man said, "That dog is very old." Mary smiled back. "Yes," she said, "but he is my heart." On the walk, Max stopped many times. He smelled the trees. He looked at the sky. Mary waited. She never pulled. She only said, "Take your time." In her heart, Mary knew the truth. Max was near his last days, but she did not say it. She only whispered, "Love is walking slow, side by side." At night, Max slept by her bed. Sometimes he dreamed and made small sounds. Mary touched his head and whispered, "Old dogs carry old stories." She looked at him and thought, "I will give you something before the end. I will give you one last gift." And Mary began to dream of a journey. Mary sat in her chair. The room was quiet. Max slept on a soft rug near the window. His breath was slow, like the sound of a calm clock. Mary looked at him for a long time. She thought, time is short, love is long. She wanted to give him something more than food and walks. She wanted to give him a memory. Mary spoke softly, "Max, we will go together." One last trip. Max lifted his head. His ears moved. Mary laughed a little. "Yes, you heard me. A trip, you and me." She opened her small bag. She began to pack. First, she put in a bottle of water. Then she added a soft towel. She took Max's red ball, old and broken, but still his favorite. She whispered, "This ball has been to every park. It will come with us too." Mary looked at a map. She pointed at the blue space by the edge. "The ocean," she said. "You have never seen the ocean. I will take you there." Her heart was both heavy and light. Heavy, because she knew why this trip mattered. Light, because she wanted to see his eyes one more time, shining like before. That evening, Mary told her neighbor. "We will travel tomorrow," she said. The neighbor looked surprised. "With Max?" "He is so old." Mary smiled. "Yes, he is old, but love does not stop because of age." The neighbor nodded. "You are brave," she said. Mary answered, "A journey is not the place. It is the heart beside you." At night, Mary lay in bed. She could not sleep. She thought of the sea. She thought of waves. She thought of Max running in his younger days, his paws fast and free. Tears filled her eyes, but she did not cry. She only whispered into the dark, "Every goodbye can start with a hello." The moonlight touched Max's face. He slept peacefully, as if he already knew. Mary closed her eyes at last. Her heart spoke one more promise. "Tomorrow we begin." The morning was cool. The sky was pale blue. Mary held the leash. Max stood beside her. His steps were slow, but his eyes were bright. At the small station, people waited for the train. Mary carried her bag. Inside was water, a towel, and Max's red ball. She sat on a bench. Max lay at her feet. She stroked his head. "We go together," she said. The train arrived with a long sound. People moved fast. Mary and Max moved slow. A young man helped Mary lift Max onto the train. "Thank you," Mary said. The man smiled. "He looks wise." Mary smiled back. "Yes, he has lived a long story." They found a seat. Max rested his head on Mary's knee. Mary looked out the window. Trees ran past, green and gold. She whispered, "Time is fast outside. Time is slow in here." A small girl sat across from them. She looked at Max with wide eyes. "Your dog is so sweet," she said. Mary nodded. "Yes, he is my best friend." The girl touched Max's paw gently. "Is he sick?" she asked. Mary paused, then said, "He is just old. Old, but still full of love." The girl thought for a moment. Then she smiled. My grandma is old too. I love her even when she cannot walk fast. Mary's eyes grew soft. Yes, love does not care about speed. The train moved across a bridge. Water shone below. Max lifted his head, his nose to the air. Mary laughed. Do you smell it? The world is big, Max. It is waiting for you. Hours passed. People got on, people got off. Some smiled at the old woman and her dog. Some whispered kind words. Mary held Max close. Her heart was both proud and tender. She whispered again, "Every trip is a memory in the making." Max closed his eyes, but his tail wagged once, slow and sure. When the train stopped at the last station, Mary stood up. She spoke softly. "We are here, Max. The sea is near." Max licked her hand. Mary felt the weight of love, and also the weight of time. Together, step by step, they walked toward the sound of waves. The air smelled of salt. The sound of waves came before the sight. Mary held Max's leash. Her steps were slow. His steps were slower. Then the sea opened before them. It was wide. It was endless. It was blue. Mary stopped. Max stopped too. She whispered, "This is it. This is our ocean." They walked down to the sand. The sand was soft and cool under Mary's shoes. Max pressed his paws into it. He looked surprised, then happy. His tail moved, slow but steady. Mary sat on the beach. Max lay beside her. The wind touched his fur. She touched his head and said, "Breathe it in, Max. This is for you." A boy ran past chasing a kite. He turned and looked at Max. "Your dog is old," the boy said. Mary nodded. "Yes, but love is not young or old. Love is forever." The boy smiled and ran away. Mary looked at Max again. His eyes were half closed, but he was awake. He lifted his head to the waves, as if he understood. Mary took the red ball from her bag. She held it up. "Do you remember this?" she asked. Max's eyes lit for a moment. She rolled the ball gently across the sand. Max did not chase it. He only watched, but Mary smiled. "It is enough. You have run enough." The waves rolled in, then out. Mary whispered, "Waves come and go, but love stays." Her voice broke, but she did not cry. She wanted this moment to stay clear, like the sea. As the sun sank lower, the sky turned orange and pink. Max rested his head on her lap. His breath was slow, but his body was calm. Mary stroked his fur and said, "Goodbyes are soft when hearts are full." For a long time they sat together. The ocean sang, the sky glowed, and in that glow Mary felt both loss and peace. She closed her eyes and whispered, "This is our gift. This is our last story together." The morning was quiet. The sky was pale, almost white. Mary opened her eyes slowly. Beside her, Max lay still. She reached out her hand. She touched his fur. It was cool, soft, and calm. His chest did not rise. His breath was gone. For a moment, the room was heavy. Mary closed her eyes. She felt a tear, but she did not cry hard. She whispered, "Thank you. You gave me everything." She sat with him in silence. Her hand stayed on his head. She remembered his puppy days, his fast legs, his loud bark, his bright eyes. She remembered the walks, the games, the nights by the fire. Every moment came back, simple and full. At last, Mary stood. She opened her bag. She took out the red ball. She carried it outside, down to the sea. The beach was empty. The waves were slow and soft. Mary knelt in the sand. She placed the ball near the water. She whispered, "You can play here forever." The tide came closer. The ball touched the edge of the water. It rocked gently, like it was waiting for him. Mary watched, her heart both heavy and light. She spoke again, her voice firm and kind. "Love does not end. It changes form." Her words moved with the wind. The sea carried them away. Behind her, the sun rose higher. The light touched her face. She breathed deep, slow, steady. Her tears dried in the morning air. She turned back once more to the waves. She whispered, "Every last moment is also a first memory." Then Mary walked up from the sand. Her steps were slow but strong. The ocean stayed behind her. The memory stayed inside her. Max was gone, but love was still here. It would always be here.